Okay, if everything has gone according to plan, we should be live on YouTube. Hello everyone and welcome to what I'm pretty sure is the very first weekend with Avrona of 2025. Even though we're, a week into February already, starting the second week of February, actually. Why? Well, a lot of reasons. Firstly, there was CES. I came back from CES super ill. I have no idea what it was, if it was just a general kind of convention flu, what usually happens when you're exposed to so many people from all around the world in a single place, or if it was COVID or whatever, I don't know, but I came back super ill. I barely was able to manage to do that Samsung Galaxy Unpacked live stream without coughing up a lung. And then last week there was pretty much nothing to talk about. Oh yeah, after that I actually left for a couple of days to go to Poland, and then last week there was nothing to talk about, but I think now is the time we really need to talk about the GPU market and how exciting this generation is already looking. There's a lot of drama in this generation, and we always love a good bit of drama. We had Intel obviously shoot first this time around with the B series cards, which I was honestly kind of impressed by how much momentum they were able to build at the start. I didn't think that too many people would care about second-gen Intel cards as they did, but it's just the fact that they were such a phenomenally good deal. They were so cheap for the performance you get, and again, because they went first, well, they had the advantage of having those a couple of months where they were just completely uncontested in that segment before Nvidia and AMD started rolling out their products. But that kind of momentum has died down. But I was still impressed exactly how much they're able to inspire people to buy Intel, to really make them want to go for Team Blue rather than Team Red or Team Green after that kind of novelty of having an Intel graphics card wore off. And then after that, obviously, we had the launch of RTX 50 series, and now we have the upcoming launch of the 5060 Ti and 5060, as well as AMD's graphics cards, both apparently coming in March. But there's still so much more going on that we really need to discuss. The first thing, we all know that the launch of the RTX series was a bit of a disaster. Why is my forehead cut off in the camera? Let me quickly fix that. But where's my source? There it is. Boom. There we go. Now, we know that the launch was a bit of a disaster for not, as I say, Intel and then AMD. Both those are incorrect. I meant Nvidia. Even though the cards themselves are pretty impressive, the issue is that, once again, there was no stock. In fact, not even employees at Nvidia are apparently able to secure these graphics cards. People have been waiting for a while. Some restocks are set to take forever. I've been trying to get into contact with some of the companies that make, not make, but the board partners for Nvidia. I've been trying to get in touch regarding getting some samples. They're all completely out of stock. Everyone's completely out of stock. No one can get us anything right now. So it was an extremely chaotic thing. One thing I am extremely surprised by is that no matter how much we keep on hearing about Nvidia pricing getting more obscene every single generation, people just don't care. And it was just such a huge launch this time around, and people are already hailing it as such a big improvement over what the RTX 40 series launch was, and people are getting in on hype. I mean, so many people were already hyping this up after the Nvidia presentation at CES. I was there. I heard all, I was going crazy myself when Jensen dropped the line that we're getting RTX 5090 performance in RTX 5070, and the RTX 5070 isn't even out yet. But what we have is a $2,000 GPU and then however much the 5080 is again, and people are still going crazy for them. So it is going to be a very interesting generation, given how much hype there is for these super high-end graphics cards. But of course, the more budget stuff, the stuff that's actually going to top the Steam hardware survey, is only coming up. And this is where it gets interesting, because we have both AMD and we also have Nvidia launching their brand new 5060 Ti, 5060, but then also the AMD RX 9070 XT and 9070 in March. Now, the 9070 XT is supposed to be about on par with the RTX 4080. So even though AMD aren't really doing flagships anymore, this is going to basically be their flagship. Hence why it's only as good as a last gen, not even flagship from Nvidia. However, one thing that really annoyed me, I was trying to find some good graphs about what the performance will be like, because it has actually already leaked. It has actually already leaked, and it is going to look something like this. Issue is video cards. Why are you comparing it to the 4080 Super and not the 4080? Granted, the difference isn't too big. Those cards are pretty much identical, just a bit faster here or there. But why aren't you giving us that? But anyway, this is what it looks like. But this is the main thing to keep in mind. Ray tracing native resolution. The thing that AMD has always struggled with so much is ray tracing. And the fact that it's now able to compete directly with the 4070 Ti Super in that category is pretty impressive. Now again, these are just some leaks from from just some very loose screenshots. We have to wait and see exactly how much it is actually going to be. But this whole launch has been so bizarre. Obviously, it's pretty much confirmed now that the product has been delayed, given how we haven't heard a single thing about it at CES, even though it was already on display at CES. I've been using that like one video I took everywhere I can when I was in Vegas. You can probably find it over on like Instagram, on YouTube as well. I posted it as a short, and I use that footage in every other video I do talking about a Radeon now, of the Gigabyte booth, where you can just see the 9070 XT and 9070 in full display. I remember when I was at the Gigabyte booth and I spotted that, I was like, excuse me? These unannounced cards just sitting here for anyone to look at, to take photos of? Granted, there was absolutely no specs given. They had to basically just fill out that little card you get next to products with just some fill about how amazing the cooling system is. They had to just waffle for a couple of sentences because they aren't allowed to give specs. I tried to get some of the reps there to maybe share something, anything about what some of the actual specs are, but they weren't able to give anything. It's all very strictly NDA'd, so that's a shame, but oh well. However, it looks like we won't have to wait too long until we actually get these, because they are looking to be coming out on the 6th of March. So it is a bit of a delay compared to most likely announcing them at CES. But again, that gave AMD time to see what Nvidia are doing and then act accordingly. Because the issue with every single generation of GPUs is that it's just the world's dumbest game of who shoots first. You know, like all those cowboys standing. It's a Mexican standoff between three cowboys, right? You have Nvidia, you have AMD, and you have Intel, and they're all trying to not flinch and just wait for the others to do something dumb. Intel went first, and it actually paid off, because again, they were competing in a segment that Nvidia and AMD were falling behind in, and now AMD let Nvidia go first, dominate the news cycle for a while, but still build some hype on their own by just having enough leaks, enough information about RX 9000 series out there, and even just the fact they are renaming them is building up a nice amount of hype, I'd say. The reason behind the naming scheme being identical to Nvidia's is dubious at best. I mean, they literally just skipped a generation of chipsets on the Ryzen side of things because they wanted to compete, to be in line with Intel's naming for their chipsets. That is pretty much the same thing they're doing here, by just having a brand new naming scheme be identical to Nvidia's, but also skipping a generation, going from 7000 to 9000. Why? We have no idea. My personal theory is that RX 8000 was supposed to be RX 8000, was just so boring they gave up on it. Or it could be, once again, to just build hype, build interest, get those headlines, get people talking about the fact they skipped a generation and it got a new naming scheme. It sounds dumb, but it could be the case. I'll try to also highlight some stuff here, but I remember that, yeah, on video cards, you can't actually highlight stuff anymore. They were complaining about some Chinese websites or whatever stealing the articles, so now they just made it that you can't even highlight anything. I remember there is a way to get around that. I can't remember what it is. but it's just kind of annoying. Oh well. So yeah, that's kind of the situation on the Nvidia and AMD front. We are most likely getting some kind of presentation in it has to be in late February. I can't remember the last time that AMD just had an event for graphics cards. Usually they have events for both, you know, like CPUs and GPUs together. They throw in some mobile stuff as well, or they usually try to show it off at either CES or Computex. So if they're going to have an event for just these graphics cards, it is going to be a bit weird. Granted, they could still bundle it with something else. They could bundle it with the brand new X3D CPUs, for example, that they teased at CES. They could talk about a brand new mobile X3D CPUs. It doesn't even have to be the desktop ones, so we just have to wait and see. But if that wasn't exciting enough for March, we have another contender, and that is Nvidia, because we are getting the 5060 and 5060 Ti. Now, obviously, those are a bit of a different category to a 9070 XT. That is going to be, again, a direct competitor to the 4080. Though we have no idea how much VRAM it's going to have yet. I don't believe it's confirmed how much VRAM those cards are going to have. Someone do correct me if I'm wrong. It's probably going to be 16 gigabytes. Let's be honest. I highly doubt. Well, no, maybe AMD will go all the way to 20. Actually, let me know what you think. Let me know in the live chat what you think. How much video memory the 9070 XT and non-XT will have. My guesses would be 16 gigs for the 9070 non-XT, and then 20 for the XT is a maximum. Could be 18. Could be 18, but 20 is an absolute maximum. I don't think they'll go for more than that. AMD has been definitely pushing to have as much memory as possible in the graphics cards of past few generations. I don't think they will go for 24, but I will be pleasantly surprised if they do. But yeah, then we have the 5060 and 5060 Ti. Now, we don't know as much about these, but they're still looking pretty exciting. They will come with either 8 or 16 gigabytes, which, okay, I know people are going to be mad at Nvidia if they go in with just 8 gigabytes. However, I don't think too many people will care or even notice that if the performance itself is up to par. We have seen people complain about the RTX 40 the lower end RTX 40 series graphics cards lacking and more VRAM than just 8 gigabytes. However, they still top the Steam hardware survey. They still are the cards that people buy the most of. Because, sure, you're not getting the most VRAM in the world, but the performance and the price and that Nvidia ecosystem and that Nvidia name are what really make up for it. Granted, that whole Nvidia ecosystem may be seeing a bit of a setback this generation, given how people have been complaining about a lot of crashes. Maybe not a lot of, but there have been reports of crashes and freezes and black screens for the 50 series so far. And what I found pretty hilarious is that the Nvidia subreddit is actually removing posts complaining about it. Yeah. So that was fun to enroll. That whole subreddit is just such an echo chamber. Every single subreddit is an echo chamber. That is what makes a subreddit. But especially the Nvidia one, it is something else. Cosmic Stardust says in chat, I'm just here on my 7900 XTX laughing at Nvidia's failed RTX 50 launch. Yeah, I mean, I would be dubious about calling it a complete failure, given how much they've been selling, given how many headlines they've been making, given how they've been topping review charts. Granted, it's not difficult to sell out when you made like 10 in the first place, but still you get my point. Anyway, so we are still getting that 5060 and 5060 Ti in March, so it is going to be an extremely busy month. So GB206 GPU, 806 gigabytes of VRAM on a 128 bus. Again, they aren't going to be competing with the likes of AMD, which are also launching that month. They are going to be competing instead with Intel. And that is going to be a point when I expect Intel to be dropping another graphics card. Because we had a 2 in December. Well, no, one of them launched in December, one of them launched in January, if I remember correctly. But now it is time for them to really follow up with something else on Battlemage to remind people, because now that the momentum has died down, there's pretty much no headlines about Intel Arc. They aren't selling as much as in those first couple of months. People are more so anticipating what Nvidia and AMD are doing. Now it's time for Intel to remind everyone they exist again. And I think it is going to be in March. And I think we're going to see a very bloody but very exciting battle between the 5060 and 5060 Ti and whatever Intel will be offering to counter that. Because while the existing Intel Arc Battlemage SKUs are pretty good, they are mostly just being compared to in benchmarks with Nvidia's last-gen offerings. 4060, 4060 Ti, I highly doubt anyone's comparing them to like a 4070 in any benchmarks, but whatever. Now is the time for them to do something to directly answer to Intel's GPUs, right? It needs to be that next step there. So hopefully it is going to be happening in March, if not April by the latest. I highly doubt they're going to be doing anything there after April, because it's just going to be too long of a pause, giving Nvidia too much breathing room. And I highly doubt AMD will be getting involved in that kind of budget segment this generation anytime soon. Probably Q3 or Q4. Okay, maybe not Q4, but Q3. That's what I'm guessing at, because it is going to be a bit too busy right now. They want to focus on reaffirming what on earth is going on with Radeon first. They want to remind people that they exist, that they can make a pretty good GPU, and get people used to the fact that this new naming scheme exists, new architecture exists, and a whole new philosophy for how they're going to make these not flagship GPUs anymore, but these wider market GPUs, as they stated that their main goal is just to build market share at all costs. So we have to wait and see how that is all going to play out. So let me know your thoughts on all of this. How do you think this is going to go down? Because this is one of the most exciting, new generations in a while. Well, we're really seeing some huge mind games being played by all three players here. So much strategy involved, and it is a very exciting standoff. So I'm kind of curious myself if I'm going to upgrade. Most likely not. I'm on a 4080. That thing is a beast. The only thing I could really upgrade to is a 5090. The 5080 makes no sense to upgrade, while the 5090 with its 32 gigabytes of RAM would be an absolute monster. Plus also DLSS will be kind of neat. Issue is that, again, that would just be me wanting to play with cool new tech rather than being practical. For video editing it would be cool, but for gaming, I mean, I get, in most stuff, well, actually no, there's one game that it would be useful for. In most stuff, in esports titles like Siege, I'm getting up to 4K 144. In titles like Cyberpunk, I'm getting my 4K 60. But there's one game that is literally unplayable even on an RTX 4080 Ti. No, RTX 4080 I mean, at 4K. And that is Indiana Jones. I really want to play that game, and I really want to do it justice with how good it looks. Issue is that even with DLSS, I get single-digit frames on max settings. I don't know if the game is just so poorly optimized, or if the path tracing is just so advanced, or if it's just this generation's equivalent of Crysis, where it was made for some theoretical next-gen computer that doesn't even exist yet, or at least didn't exist when the game came out. Now that the 5080 is available and the 5090 are available, guess it's a bit of a different story. But that's like the one thing. For video editing, it makes absolutely no sense. What I really need for video editing is more RAM. I'm on 64, and I literally need to close everything down. I need to close Chrome down, Discord down, literally everything, just so DaVinci doesn't crash when I'm exporting anymore. I really need more than 64, but yeah, I'm basically just going around begging from as many companies as possible to send me a 128 gig kit, which, surprise, surprise, is kind of difficult because that's kind of a lot of memory. What are people saying in chat? I just want to buy a GPU that works and will last me a long time. I'm game at 1080p, and my 79 XTX will last me for at least another 6 years. Yeah, I mean, at that point, if you have a 7900 XTX, I mean, you really want to be upgrading to at least like 1440p, unless you play on a 500 hertz display or something. One of those, crazy 240, 500 hertz monitors for esports or whatever. You can definitely get away with at least 1440p on that monster. It is definitely a noticeable improvement over 1080p, and I'd say that 1080p is already kind of not. I wouldn't say it's not relevant. I would love to say it's not relevant. That part of me really wants 1080p to finally die and stop being a thing in 2025 because it's holding us all back. But I know that's not the case. I know that if you still look, well, what people are using, 1080p still dominates. But I'm really liking how 1440p is pretty much a bare minimum. Even if you look at what Intel's messaging was when they launched the B series, they are saying that even those budget graphics cards are aiming at 1440p as minimum. They're not even aiming the budget graphics cards to be 1080p. They're aiming at a budget graphics cards to be good at 1440p, which is a pretty big step, and I love that change in messaging. And I very much expect AMD and Nvidia to follow suit when they launch the budget offerings, that they're gonna not even bother talking about 1080p anymore. They're just gonna talk about performance in 1440p and 4K. 4K is still very much, I don't want to say as niche, but very a lot more niche. But it's getting there. And I hope that 2025 will finally be the year in which 1080p just dies. 1440p isn't the end all, and yeah, but it's still an improvement. It's still a noticeable improvement over 1080p. It is very much noticeable, and it's that very nice in between for a lot of people. I do not care about frame rate and playing at a high refresh rate as much as most people. That is why I switched over to 4K very early on. I switched over to 4K something like 5 years ago. I just had this tiny, it was a 24-inch 4K TN panel, so it looked atrocious. It was TN, so the viewing angles were bad. It was 24-inch. It was 60 hertz, but it was 4K. And looking back, okay, I probably wish I went for something that wasn't TN, where that quality of the actual image itself, discounting resolution, was better. But now I'm playing at a 43-inch monitor, so it's ginormous, 4K, 144 hertz, and that is pretty much the end game. Well, no, it's not the end game. It's because it's not OLED, and I hate the fact it's not OLED. And I've been starting to look around if there is basically an upgraded version of it that's 4K, 144 hertz, but OLED. There isn't, kind of. There is an Asus ROG model that's 42-inch 4K OLED, but it's also like 138 hertz for some reason. But that looks like a pretty promising model. Or maybe I could just go for an LG TV. I don't know. I'm basically just hoping that Aorus, who made this thing, it's an FV43U, are gonna make an upgraded version that's just OLED. But yeah, 1440p is very much worth it. That's what I'm trying to get at. Even if you don't go all the way to 4K, 1440p is still very much noticeable. And again, if you are on a higher, if you have a bigger panel, it does make a much bigger difference. But even out of 24-inch, that pixel density is going to come in very much useful. I mean, there is very much an argument to be made that you don't need anything above, say, 1080 on something like a phone. That is why those have been stuck at 1440p since forever. No one is even bothering to give phones 4K displays, because that would just be a waste. That pixel density just doesn't matter. But the second you start scaling beyond 24 inches on a monitor, it does start to matter. And I honestly couldn't even imagine doing anything on a 24-inch monitor nowadays. It would just be way too small. That's the issue with monitors, that once you go larger, it's impossible for you to adjust back down to something smaller. So I may have kind of shot myself in the foot by going with something as big as a 43-inch display, because now anything smaller than that would be unusable for me, even if the quality of the image itself would be awesome. Like something from like Samsung, the Samsung Odysseys are absolutely amazing. Ultra wide is awesome, but it doesn't give me that just huge area for activity as a 43-inch monitor does now. 4K is a lot harder to run, I agree, but it is very much getting there with every single generation. And with RTX 40 series in particular, and AMD equivalent, it is at a point where you can very easily get 4060, 4K 60, sorry, in most games, even if you have to do a bit of tweaking in settings, sprinkle in some DLSS or FSR or XCSS, and it is very much doable. Very much doable. Plus, the good thing about playing at 4K is that your CPU just doesn't matter. Your CPU just doesn't matter. When I got that first 4K 60 monitor, I was playing on a GTX 1080 Ti for my GPU to drive the 4K monitor, and an FX 8350 CPU. That thing's from like 2013. And by that time, like Ryzen 3000 was already out. And I was still running that thing. Well, actually, no, Ryzen 2000 was out, and I upgraded to a Ryzen 3700X the second those things launched. And the amount of difference in performance between an FX 8350, a very controversial CPU that wasn't even a flagship or anything from like 2013, and an RX and a Ryzen 3700X, the difference in performance at 4K was 0 FPS. It literally doesn't matter. For stuff like video editing, sure, it made things faster, obviously. The frame times, like the minimums, improved slightly, but the averages stay the same because it was just completely GPU bound. And even then, I continued to use my 1080 Ti for 4K gaming. It was still very, very capable for 4K gaming up until like last year when I upgraded to a 4080 Ti. Why do I keep saying 4080 Ti? 4080. Okay, that's not necessarily true either. For a while, I did actually upgrade to an Arc A770, which I bought just to kind of mess around with and benchmark, and then I saw exactly how much faster it is. It wasn't much faster, it was just faster enough to be worth just keeping in my PC. But yeah, if I was able to enjoy 4K gaming, even on more demanding games for so long on 1080 Ti, then you can get away with 1440p on a 70 and 900 XTX. Yeah, this show got like way off topic then. Well, not way off topic, because we're still talking about GPUs, but kind of off the rails, I'd say. How long have I been streaming for? 30 minutes. I'd say that's a good time to kind of end the show here. So hopefully Weekends with Avrona will be back to your regular schedule now. Every Saturday at, what time is it? 7 p.m. GMT. I am experimenting with times a bit, so maybe it will be at 6 p.m. Maybe it will be at 7 p.m. I will probably let you know in the actual community tab over on YouTube. And let me know, as always, what you guys want to see on the show. We'll be trying to get guests in. I'll try to organize some more cool stuff we can do and just read news and then have me ramble about random stuff for the rest of the show. It is going to be a really fun few weeks, I think, for Weekends with Avrona. But again, it also just depends on what you guys suggest. If you have some awesome ideas for the show, again, let me know. And hopefully, yeah, we can have a streak going for a couple of weeks now before I inevitably leave the country again for a couple of days or something. But anyway, that's about it. So I hope you enjoyed this live stream. If you did, remember to subscribe, like, whatever, and I'll see you all in whatever I make next. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.